तपस्वाध्यायशुश्रूषा कृष्णपूजारतं मुनिं विश्वेशमिष्टदं वन्दे परिव्राट्चक्रवर्तिनम्। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. हरि ओम to all. Welcome back to Bhagavad Gita session. Today we are going to look at Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 26. In the previous verses we saw Krishna has firmly established the Atma is eternal, Atma is unborn, and Atma is indestructible. Now, in this verse, Krishna takes a different approach. He presents a logical fallback argument. Krishna says, even if you do not accept this teaching fully, still your grief is not justified. Let us look at the verse first. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 26. अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि. अथा, even if, cha, and enam, this Atma, nityajatam, constantly born, nityam, always, va, or, manyase, you think, mritam, dead, tatha api, even then, tvam, you, mahabaho, o mighty armed Arjuna, na, not, evam, in this way, shochitum, to grieve, arhasi, you should. Simple meaning of this verse: even if you think that the Atma is constantly born and constantly dies, even then, O Arjuna, you should not grieve in this way. Let us look at the deeper explanation of this verse. Athacha enam nityajatam. Even if you think the self is constantly born. Krishna shifting the perspective here. He says, let us assume you believe that life keeps beginning again and again. Even from that viewpoint, grief is not justified. Or nityam va manyase mrutam, are always dying. If you think beings are constantly dying, or you think existence is a cycle of birth and death, still the conclusion remains the same. Grief is not justified. Krishna literally saying, even if your understanding is different from mine, your conclusion or your grief is still incorrect. This is powerful teaching method. He is not forcing philosophy. Krishna is showing from any angle grief is unnecessary. Tathapi tvam mahabaho. Even then, O mighty armed. He is deliberately saying Arjuna, addressing Arjuna as Mahabahu. Krishna reminds Arjuna of his strength. You are not a weak person. So, you should not collapse emotionally. That is what he says, Naivam shochitumarkasi. You should not grieve like this. Why? Because even in the cycle of birth and death, change is natural. And even in the cycle of birth and death, transition is unavoidable. So, grief based on something inevitable is not meaningful. Krishna is giving two levels of reasoning here. The higher truth, the Atma is eternal. Lower assumption, even if birth and death are real. In both cases, grief is not justified. Why Krishna uses this argument? Arjuna is emotionally overwhelmed. So Krishna uses philosophical reasoning and practical reasoning. By using those two reasonings, he removes sorrow from every possible angle. So, what does it mean exactly? If something is unavoidable, or if something is part of nature, then resisting it creates suffering. Because birth and death are part of natural order. Birth and death are part of life process. So, grieving excessively does not change the reality. So, you should not grieve. Whatever the understanding, whether it is philosophical or assumption, still there is no point of grief. What other Acharya says in this regard? Shankaracharya ji says, Krishna now argues from the opposite viewpoint. Even if you assume the soul is not eternal, if you think the soul is repeatedly born and repeatedly dies with each body, even then there is no reason to grieve. Why? Because whatever is born will surely die. Whatever dies will be born again. This birth and death cycle is inevitable and natural. So, Krishna is literally saying, even if your understanding is incorrect, even then your grief does not make sense. Because you are mourning for something that is unavoidable, universal, and natural. So, whether you believe the Atma is eternal or Atma is repeatedly born and dies, in both cases, grief is unnecessary. What Ramanujacharya ji says, even if someone assumes that the soul is not separate from the body and is subject to repeated birth and death, still there is no reason to grieve. Birth naturally leads to aging, and aging inevitably leads to death. This birth and death cycle is a fixed law of material existence and cannot be avoided. So, whether understood correctly, means Atma as eternal, or incorrectly, means Atma as perishable, the conclusion remains the same. What is inevitable should not be cause of sorrow. What Madhvacharya ji says, although the Atma is eternal, due to its long association with the body, it identifies itself with birth and death. This creates samsara, the endless cycle of taking bodies and leaving them. Until liberation is attained, the Atma continues to undergo this cycle of birth and death according to the laws of nature and cosmic order. What does it mean? Birth and death are part of a natural cosmic process. Once the person understands this, removes fear, reduces attachment, ends unnecessary grief. Because what is governed by eternal law is not something to be lamented. So, here also grief is not necessary. What Keshava Kashmiri ji says, after establishing the Atma's immortality through Vedas, Krishna now argues from an alternative viewpoint. Even if one accepts the idea that the soul is born and dies with the body, still there is no reason to grieve. Krishna uses this even if reasoning to show that regardless of one's understanding, lamentation is not justified. What does it mean then? Whether the Atma is eternal, it is true understanding, or subject to birth and death, assumed point of view. In both cases, grief is unnecessary and not based on wisdom. So you should not worry, you should not grieve. In this verse, Krishna starts that word atha, even if, to address different philosophical views about the nature of the Atma. Indian philosophy has many schools. Some accept the Vedas and agree that the Atma is eternal and unchanging. Others deny that and propose different ideas. Some say body itself is the Atma. Some say Atma changes with the body. Some say no permanent Atma, only a stream of continuity. Krishna acknowledges these differing views without debating them in detail. Instead, he makes a powerful point. Even if one accepts these alternative theories, that the Atma is born and dies repeatedly, still there is no reason to grieve. Krishna's teaching is universal. If the soul is eternal, there is no grief. If the soul is temporary, still no grief, because change is natural. So, from every philosophical angle, lamentation is unnecessary and not based on wisdom. So, truth removes doubt, but wisdom removes the grief. And Krishna establishes both. Krishna now makes it very clear. Even if you believe in constant birth and death, grief is still not justified. Whether from the highest truth that Atma is eternal, or practical understanding, the Atma is perishing, the conclusion is the same. So, do not collapse in sorrow. This verse removes even the last excuses for the grief. What happens next? That we will see in the next session. Until that, Hari Om to all. God bless you all. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramayah. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschit dukhavag bhavet. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Sham.